I now invite the next participating delegation, the Islamic Republic of Iran, to address the court. And I call upon His Excellency, Mr. Kazem Garibabadi, to take the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, members of the court, it is indeed an honor to appear before you on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Holy Quran says, من أجل ذلك كتبنا على بني إسرائيل أنه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس أو فساد في الأرض فكأنما قتل الناس جميعا وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. That is why we decreed for the children of Israel that whoever kills a soul without its being guilty of manslaughter or corruption on the earth is as though he had killed all mankind, and whoever saves a life is as though he had saved all mankind. As the principal judicial organ of the United Nations, this honorable court is once again called upon to address fundamental yet persistently overlooked rights of the Palestinian people. These include the right to urgently needed supplies essential to their survival, as well as of basic services and humanitarian and development assistance, the right to humanitarian access and basic necessities of life as referred to the question put to the court as per General Assembly Resolution of 19th December 2024. However, as we do not deem the Israeli occupying regime a legitimate member of the United Nations due to the illegality of its formation, we focus on violations of the Israeli regime in light of its prolonged occupation of Palestine and ongoing genocide, particularly in Gaza. As a preliminary remark, given Article 96 of the United Nations Charter, Para 1 of Article 65 of the Statute of the Court, and the Court's jurisprudence, we submit that the jurisdiction of the Court is evident and that there are no compelling reasons for the Court not to exercise its jurisdiction. Mr. President, it is too late. All the evidence points unequivocally to genocide. The window, if any, to stop the ongoing genocide in Gaza is rapidly closing. The question before the court does not concern an ordinary armed conflict. It deals with a genocidal situation, and as such, it requires a response to address its specific circumstances. The court has already decided in its orders of provisional measures more than 1 year ago that the Israeli occupying regime must, among others, I quote, take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, end quote, and to take, I quote, all necessary and effective measures to ensure without delay, in full cooperation with the United Nations, the unhindered provision at a scale by all concerned of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance, including food, water, electricity, fuel, shelter, clothing, hygiene, and sanitation requirements, as well as the medical supplies, end quote. 1 year past the prolonged recalcitrance of the genocide and inaction of the international community at this juncture constitutes an absolute moral and legal failure. According to latest reports, around 52,000 Palestinians have been killed as martyrs and over 123,000 wounded since October 2023, a toll that rises daily and a direct result of pursuing the declared policy of dehumanization by the Israeli occupying regime. These are not mere numbers. They represent innocent children, women, the elderly, and families. An entire nation under siege, being systematically decimated. As these proceedings unfold, OCHA reports that no aid has entered Gaza since 2nd of March. Medical supplies are rapidly depleting, including critical stocks for maternal and child health, as the number of aid workers killed since October 2023 has reached 412. Meanwhile, UNRWA and other humanitarian actors face systematic obstruction in delivering aid. The disaster is currently so frustrating that on 7th April, the heads of OCHA, the UNICEF, the United Nations Office for Project Services, UNRWA, WFP, WHO, and IOM issued an urgent appeal to world leaders to act firmly and urgently to save Palestinians in Gaza, with a high-level United Nations official says that, I quote, "We are being deliberately blocked from saving lives in Gaza, and so civilians are dying," end quote. How much more must the world witness before recognizing the genocidal intent behind these atrocities, including the infliction of severe bodily and mental harm, the deliberate imposition of conditions calculated to bring about Palestinians' physical destruction? All the aforementioned is just a fraction of the decades-long Israeli regime's crimes in Palestine. Dozens of United Nations resolutions, reports, and decisions, alongside the dicta of this court in numerous advisory and contentious proceedings, have affirmed the illegality of occupation and the imperative of unimpeded humanitarian access. Yet these rulings and appeals have gone unheeded, as inhuman acts persist with devastating consequences. This totality of actions has, in our view, created a sui generis situation, demanding an equally sui generis response, specifically tailored to end the prolonged occupation, stop the genocide, save lives, secure the right to self-determination of Palestinians, and bring criminals to justice. Mr. President, members of the court, in our oral statement today, we submit that obstruction of humanitarian aid constitutes a violation of international humanitarian law. It further violates Palestinians' fundamental rights. Commission of international crimes both contribute to and result from obstruction of humanitarian access, and we finally submit that the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states are under an obligation to ensure Palestinians' access to humanitarian aid. Meanwhile, given the unprecedented gravity of the ongoing genocide, our arguments will demonstrate a clear nexus between obstruction of humanitarian aid and its human consequences, and the international community's obligation to prevent genocide. Mr. President, members of the court, as an occupying power, the Israeli occupying regime has systematically and repeatedly obstructed access to civilian population in flagrant violation of international humanitarian law, including provisions of the Hague Regulations 1907, as well as the Fourth Geneva Convention of 1949. Article 43 of the Hague Regulations, as well as Articles 23, 33, 47, 50, 53, 55, and 56 of the Fourth Geneva Convention unequivocally account for the obligations of the Israeli occupying regime, including to cooperate with the United Nations, its agencies and bodies, other international organizations, and third states to ensure Palestinians' access to urgently needed supplies essential to their survival. Among these provisions, Article 43 of the Hague Regulations is particularly pertinent, expressly requiring the occupying power to, and I quote, take all measures in its power to restore and ensure, as far as possible, public order and safety of the occupied territory, end quote. Moreover, Article 55 of the Fourth Geneva Convention is explicit in obliging the occupying power to ensure the food and medical supplies of the civilian population. Mr. President, members of the court, the Palestinian people in Gaza and the West Bank in particular have been deprived of the basic necessities essential to their survival, leading to violation of their fundamental human rights to life, water, food, and health, among others. First and foremost, right to life, especially in Gaza, has become a mirage. Killing is occurring on a daily basis. The threshold under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention was crossed a long time ago. with deliberate targeting of civilians, all belonging to a group, as well as the deliberate obstruction of humanitarian and vital for their survival, genocidal intent is beyond evident. Apart from direct deaths, what has been underreported is indirect death that add significantly to the gravity of the situation, in particular in Gaza. According to a recent study, deaths due to traumatic injury in the Gaza Strip between 7th October 2023 and 30th of June 2024 reflect an exceptionally high mortality rate, underscoring the urgent need for interventions to prevent further loss of life. Concerning violation of Palestinians' right to water as a result of blocking humanitarian access, apart from a scarcity of clean, fresh water in Gaza for more than a decade due to destruction of water and sanitation infrastructure, in October 2023, the Israeli occupying regime closed the water pipelines into Gaza and cut off the electricity needed to run the desalination plants that process the brackish water that flows from the coastal aquifer. According to WHO, poor access to fresh water has resulted in water-related diseases such as hepatitis A, which is typically acquired by consuming contaminated food or water. What has deteriorated the water tragedy in Gaza, specifically during the past year, has been the brutal devastation of United Nations structure for water, sanitation and hygiene in the Gaza Strip, demonstrating the Israeli occupying regime's direct targeting of humanitarian aid from the United Nations, even prior to recent years' strikes. The question remains as to how this cannot be seen as evidence of genocidal intent by the Israeli occupying regime. As regards Palestinians' right to food, the OCHA announced in November 2023 already that Gazans were at a high risk of starvation, further stating that it was incapable of providing adequate food, water and medical care to meet Gazans' needs. As another example, as early as March 2024, a report was released by the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification Famine Review Committee, stating that widespread famine would be imminent in Gaza, and there would be, I quote, a major acceleration of death and malnutrition, end quote. Mr. President, members of the court, more than a year has passed since this catastrophic phase, and the situation has only deteriorated as starvation and willful obstruction of humanitarian aid causes serious bodily harm to Palestinians, again in contravention of the Genocide Convention. Mr. President, members of the court, Gaza's health system has also been debilitated by the Israeli regime. At least 627 healthcare workers are known to have been killed, 212 have been arrested, and 47 ambulances have been destroyed or damaged through targeted attacks. By January 2024, the Israeli regime had already bombed every one of Gaza's 12 universities in what may be called a full-fledged scholaticide, ironically, at a time when the need for doctors has never been so urgent. No medical student has been able to graduate. What is even more staggering is the often neglected psychological effects of the Israeli regime's actions on the well-being of civilians in Palestine, and in particular in Gaza. Years of exposure to violence, displacement and loss have led to a burgeoning mental health crisis with chronic stress, PTSD, depression and anxiety becoming endemic, living in the Gazan children particularly vulnerable. The impact of this psychological trauma is profound. In such a crisis, blockade of access to medical care of the United Nations, other international organizations and entities is a blatant disregard for fundamental principles of international law by the Israeli occupying regime, significantly undermining the Palestinians' right to health. This constitutes a literal violation of Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, as its terms are breached verbatim by the Israeli occupying regime. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Court, international crimes being committed by the Israeli occupying regime in Palestine have appeared as a cause and effect of obstruction of humanitarian access. These include, among others, genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. This pattern is reflected in the ICC prosecutor's application for arrest warrants against Israeli criminals and the pending proceedings before this honourable court regarding alleged violations of the Genocide Convention. War crimes have become a routine by the Israeli occupying regime, particularly in Gaza Strip. Attacks against civilians, including United Nations staff, medical personnel, as well as journalists, deliberate targeting of civilian infrastructure and medical facilities, and imposing collective punishment on the civilian population are only part of the war crimes committed by the Israeli occupying regime in the last year. According to the United Nations, up to 1.9 million people in Gaza are internally displaced, including people who have been displaced 9 or 10 times. From the perspective of displacement, the present-day ethnic cleansing of Gaza can be compared to the 1948 Nakba of Palestine. This, among others, is a clear instance of crimes against humanity, especially when coupled with obstruction of humanitarian access. More concerning still is the estimate provided by the United Nations and other organizations about increasing numbers of newborns on brink of death. The United Nations highlighted hunger, starvation, and famine as the cause of such deaths as a result of extensive restrictions by the Israeli regime on the entry and distribution of humanitarian aid and commercial goods, mass population displacement, and the destruction of crucial civilian infrastructure. Such measures are intended to prevent births among Palestinians as an instance of genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention. According to another report by the United Nations Independent International Commission of Inquiry in Palestine, the Israeli regime has perpetrated a concerted policy to destroy Gaza's healthcare system as part of a broader assault in Gaza, which is evidence of commission of the crime against humanity of extermination. Such policies and practices have systematically denied humanitarian access to United Nations agencies and other relief organizations, precluding the delivery of vital assistance to civilians, a pattern appearing both as a cause and effect of obstruction of humanitarian access. Mr. President, members of the Court, to conclude, the question put to the Court on its face concerns humanitarian access to a civilian population. In a situation of armed conflict, however, we are faced with a genocidal situation here. It is indispensable for the Court to opine on humanitarian access to a people targeted by genocidal acts and the ensuing obligations of the international community to stop them. In its judgment of 26 February 2007 in the case concerning application of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, Bosnia and Herzegovina versus Serbia and Montenegro, the Court clarified the content of the duty to prevent genocide under the Convention. In the Court's opinion, responsibility is incurred, I quote, if the state manifestly failed to take all measures to prevent genocide which were within its power and which might have contributed to preventing the genocide, end quote. The Court further considers the first parameter to be, I quote, the capacity to influence effectively the action of persons likely to commit or already committing genocide, end quote. In the court's view, I quote, a state's obligation to prevent and the corresponding duty to act arise at the instant that the state learns of or should normally have learned of the existence of a serious risk that genocide will be committed. From that moment onwards, if the state has available to it means likely to have a deterrent effect on those suspected of preparing genocide or reasonably suspected of harboring a specific intent, it is under a duty to make such use of these means as the circumstances permit, end quote. Mr. President, we ask if there is a state that has not learned of the existence of a serious risk that genocide would be committed in Gaza. What have those states that are in a position to prevent genocide done to fulfill their duty under the Convention? We regard obstruction of humanitarian aid by the Israeli occupying regime as, among others, evidence of genocidal intent and invite the court to clarify a state's duties to ensure Palestinians humanitarian access in view of a state's obligation to prevent genocide under the Genocide Convention. Having said that, notwithstanding the present proceedings, the rule...
In analysing the speech just presented before the International Court of Justice, several key dimensions stand out, each reinforcing the central argument that urgent, decisive international legal action is both warranted and overdue in the context of the war on Gaza. First, the speaker skillfully anchors the address in a universal moral framework, beginning with a Quranic verse that transcends religion and speaks to the fundamental value of human life. This sets a tone of shared humanity, which proves critical throughout the address. The speech is not merely a legal argument, it is a moral reckoning. Structurally, the speaker moves from broad humanitarian principles to specific legal claims, invoking international humanitarian law, the Genocide Convention, and the Geneva Conventions. This layered approach ensures that the argument is both emotionally resonant and legally rigorous. By citing United Nations resolutions, ICJ precedent, and international legal instruments, the speech grounds its pleas in the very language and legacy of global law. What stands out most is the balance struck between emotion and restraint. The content is undeniably graphic and painful. The systematic killing of civilians, targeting of hospitals, displacement of over 1 million people. But the delivery avoids sensationalism. Instead, the speaker employs a firm, deliberate tone that channels outrage into a structured legal and ethical demand for accountability, for protection, and for the end of impunity. This is not merely a call for justice, it is an indictment of the world's selective silence. In doing so, the speaker forces a confrontation not just with legal statutes, but with conscience. The speech asks, if not now, then when? If not this, then what counts as genocide? In conclusion, the speech is a compelling blend of legal argumentation and moral advocacy. It reclaims the courtroom not only as a space of law, but as a place where human dignity is either defended or denied. The choice, the speaker implies, now lies with the court, and by extension, with all of us.